My mother was diagnosed with undifferentiated lymphoma cancer, and within 90 days of her diagnosis, she was pronounced dead at MD Anderson Hospital.
Whether you on the outside of your market trying to tap back in, or just need a little help to find a way to gain some traction again, you need some market reconnection. We got the answers to your questions. No second thoughts or second guessing. You need some market reconnection.
Ivan Temelkov here on Market Reconnection podcast, and today I am joined by an amazing guest who I'm looking forward to having an amazing conversation by the name of Michelle Lamont. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's Michelle J. Lamont.
Michelle J. Lamont. I apologize.
And the only reason I say that is there's a very famous Harvard professor in England, and her name is Michelle Lamont. So if you don't throw that J in there, you're going to be sent over to somebody totally different. And
wow, that makes sense.
Yeah, we both have a lot of Google hits. So we
okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, that makes complete sense, and I'm glad that you mentioned that. And let's start with introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background, a little bit about your story, and I'm looking forward to kind of peeling some of those layers from there.
Okay, awesome. So my name is Michelle Juanita Lamont, and I'm a mindset and manifestation coach, but I started off being a first-generation American. My brothers were born in Colombia, and my mom learned English here on Sesame Street, became an educated, successful American citizen and entrepreneur, and passed that love on to especially me. I'm the only entrepreneur in my family, and there we go. So at the age of 10, I lived in Dallas, Texas at the time. My mother was diagnosed with undifferentiated lymphoma cancer. And within 90 days of her diagnosis, she was pronounced dead at MD Anderson Hospital. My father is an American, so my mother's Colombian and my father's American. And at the time, for whatever reason, he drove me 3 hours away to Waco, Texas, and told me to go inside and take a test because I just skipped a grade in the public school system. So I thought it was like, oh, another academic, you're so smart test.
Yeah.
But he actually surrendered me to the state of Texas. So I became homeless. And then they became my parents after proceedings. And he kept my brothers and gave me away. And I grew up at the Waco Children's Methodist Home, which is full of violent, angry, pedophilic situations where nobody should ever go. In fact, I was just watching on Netflix the other day the David Koresh story called Waco. And in 3 of the stories, it's a 3-part series, and 2 of them, they feature the orphanage and they talk about how awful it is. And I was like, that's where I lived.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they talked about the cruelty there so anyway, I had a determination because of my immigrant mother to really get an education. So I was in these classes in school called AP. I don't know if they have those anymore. And so one of the parents said, what do you want, Michelle? And I said, I want to go to college. And they literally brought me these thick books on all these scholarships you can apply for. And the mom brought me like 200 envelopes and stamps. And she said, well, you better get writing these letters to get this money, because there was no internet, right? There wasn't just button. So my end of my sophomore year and all of my junior year, I was just sending letters to everybody. I can't remember how many different scholarships. I got one from Bic Pen for $12 every semester if I wrote a poem using a Bic pen and mailed it to them. I'd get a $12 check, okay? So I was like, hey, look, that's 3 dinners for me. All right. That's 3 meals. Okay. I didn't have anybody. I didn't have any family. All my mom's family lived in a country far, far away. I'm 17, I don't have anybody in the world except all I've known is violence and abuse. So, I get myself all the way to Arizona State from Texas and go to college. And my sophomore year, I ended up meeting my husband. We got married very quickly. And it became a very, unfortunately, very verbally, emotionally, and mentally abusive marriage.
Yeah.
But during that time, my escapism was to be successful. And my drive was to say, well, just because everybody threw me away doesn't mean that I don't have a lot to offer. And I started my first business, Foxy Paws, which actually the Facebook page is still live because in the divorce, my ex-husband owns that Facebook page and has never taken it down for some reason. So you can actually go and find my store. So I started that business with $250 and a car that went in first, third, and reverse. And my sunroof didn't close all the way. So I had to use garbage bags and duct tape. And I would drive like my head halfway and would bring clothes to change into for different meetings and at gas stations or McDonald's. But I worked about 3.5 years doing side jobs, bartending, working at Domino's Pizza, catering, waiting tables, delivering food. And I eventually got a nice little healthy debt of about $69,000 to $71,000 by year 3. And everybody's like, go get a job with your education and, don't go down this rabbit hole. Like, don't do this, Michelle. And of course, my husband wanted me to go get insurance and have all the things, right? I think entrepreneurs are just not cut from the same material as everybody else. And every time I thought of handcuffing myself to a desk or a job that I didn't have real passion for, I just thought, this is not how I'm supposed to do this.
Right.
So by year 5, Foxy Paws hit its $1 million sales and revenue. And I went from a kiosk to an in-store mall location to multiple locations to 70 employees. And then Al Gore invented the internet. And with the birth of the internet and the invention of the internet, all mall businesses pretty much came to a halt. And I remember the day that I was next door to Neiman Marcus and the Gap at a very high-end Dallas mall. And the Gap manager, I had a dog bakery and boutique, and I sold dog dresses and dog beds. And if you love basset hounds, I had 50 different things in basset hounds, whatnot. So I remember the Gap manager coming in, and I didn't really know about the internet or what was going on. I was just a kid trying to make my business grow. And I had and she comes in and she was like, did you hear about what the mall is doing? And I said, no. She goes, we're not allowed to put the gap.com on our window. They told us they will board up our window if we put our website on there. And in that moment, I knew my business was over. I didn't know why, but I knew that if the Gap was having this kind of an issue, I was next, and in a big way. So I started closing down those businesses, and I didn't really know what I was going to do next. And and I'm sure most people understand who have birthed a successful business. The thought of it dying, the thought of it closing, the thought of it changing, it's like, might as well rip that out of my uterus and say oh, you don't get the baby anymore. Right. So I ended up selling my name to a competitor in my market who was a national chain, and closing my store down. And during the evolution of the Facebook time and all that, I was able to really expand that business. But the universe was showing me that the next business was right here. And that day that I closed my business, somebody called and asked me, who does my public relations? And they were a pet business. And I said, I did it. And they said, well, can you do it for me? And I literally went to the monster called the internet, and I typed in with my fingers, public relation agreement. I didn't know anything else. I printed this contract, drive across town, close my store, drive across town and say, give him an amount. I said $1,500, which should have been about 15,000. And he was like, is that the deposit? At that point, I was like, sure. But I had to, I was like, I'll take your 1,500 and I'll
Yeah.
figure out what I need to know. So literally I succeeded with that account. He sold out his event in record time. And Lamont PR was born. And my second client was literally Dancing with the Stars, Dallas Cowboys edition. And
Wow.
yep. And what had happened was there was somebody from the Dallas Cowboys that was a constant shopper at my store, and we had
Yeah.
become friends. I told her I was closing, and she said, "You should do public relations. You're on TV all the time for the Foxy Paws." I was always doing dog segments, like here's a dog sweater, here's a dog life jacket. They loved it.
Yeah.
Here's a young girl with
Yeah.
a story. So it made for great TV. So I was like, really? So she calls this guy who was a huge Hall of Famer and says, "Hey, do you guys have anybody who is doing your in-kind PR for the Dancing with the Stars Dallas Cowboys?" He says, "No." And then she literally names my company in that moment. Like, this is all in a 3-minute thing. And she says, "Have you heard of Lamont PR?" And she puts it on speaker. And here I'm hearing this world famous Hall of Famer. And he goes, "Yeah, I know that company." And she says, "Well, they would like to do an in-kind of $220,000. And I'm like, wait, what? I have to pay 220. I don't have 20,000. And I didn't understand what in-kind or honorarium. I didn't understand
Yeah.
these terms. And she was like, and she wants to do your PR. Well, they had the highest number. We agreed on it. And they had the highest number of media interviews and raised 10 times the amount they had ever raised before.
Wow.
And when you walked into this event with Tony Romo, Troy Aikman, Michael Irvin, Mike Madonna, every athlete that is in Dallas participates in this from every category and every anchor. And I walk in this door and Lamont PR is everywhere. I was like, Is this Dancing with the Stars event or is this a Lamont PR launch? So the universe was always teaching me that if I was stepping into fear and stepping away from insecurity and doubt and really taking those big risks, because at this point, what did I have to lose, right? And that's kind of how I've always been as an entrepreneur. I'm just going to roll the dice and see what happens. And it's been very effective. And the universe was taking me on that journey. So I did the PR gig for about 10.5 years, grew it to a very huge, successful agency, and was having extreme personal difficulties in my home with my husband. Unfortunately, was not very happy that he worked for me. He couldn't do anything on his own and would then turn his internal rage on himself on me. And so I endured a lot of suffering during that time. And in 2016, I just decided I can't do this anymore. And I divorced him. He's happy. He's remarried. He's living a beautiful life. And I only wish the best for him. I've forgiven everybody that has ever abused me, hurt me. Whatever you've done, doesn't matter. I've forgiven you. Was that
that is a lot. That is a lot. And I actually want to peel back some of that because there's a lot of different parts of your journey leading up thus far that I want to get your take on, because very much like what you mentioned, I think us entrepreneurs are very different. I'm actually Eastern European, was born in Bulgaria. So there's a lot of relation to a lot of the things that you talked about. And in fact, in part, I think it was 11 years ago, there was an article in Inc. magazine that said that, over 40% of the Fortune 500 companies in the United States were built by immigrants or children of immigrants. Obviously, Google being one of them, IBM, list goes on and on and on of all these Fortune companies. But I want to go back to the humble beginnings where you were talking about how you were being raised, family, all of that. If you were to think back on your journey as you were going through all of these experiences, did you ever kind of stop and think to yourself, hey, I want to start a business one day? How did you arrive to actually, like the Foxy Paws, the business? how did you arrive to that? Like, was there sort of a pivotal point in your life where you were thinking about, I want to make more money, or was it something specific that you can recall?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I had lived in Mexico for a year and I'd
Hmm.
worked in sales and because I'm bilingual and I can read, write, and translate in both languages.
Yeah.
So I lived there with my husband and my two dogs, and I had made so much money because he wasn't employable, but I was, that we
Hmm.
just had this nice little nest egg. So we decided that we were going to go to Europe for 8 weeks and leave the dogs with his sister. And unfortunately, on the first day of the trip, she did the one thing I asked her not to do, and my dog was hit and killed behind her house. So I had to cut that trip short, come home, and I was all set to work at a very appropriate job from the recruiter.
Yep.
And when I got back from Europe, because it was like my last little freedom trip, right? Before you buy the house and you decide to plant a couple of children or trees or dogs or whatever you do.
Yeah.
And I had a very intense dream that my dog was opening a dog bakery. And I didn't tell my husband. And I go down to the city of Dallas and I was like, can dogs and people eat together? And they were
Yeah.
like, no. So I set out on this journey to do what this dream told me to do. And I started this business called Nixon's Top Dog Bakery and Boutique, and I was selling wholesale. I even
Yeah.
got to stand, I got so big, I got Petco, Whole Foods, everything.
Oh, wow.
But when the accountant came in and said, I was like, well, if Petco is buying $50,000 pallets, why am I still broke? Why can't I pay this debt off? What's going on? And he said, you would have to manufacture it. And that would be a $275,000 investment in equipment. And you're just not set up to compete with, you know, dog food companies. And it
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
commonplace for people to buy dog snacks, gourmet dog snacks at the time. So I got this idea to just make turn it in the front of my bakery into retail, because honestly, there was this gay guy that came to
Hmm.
my bakery. He had the car I wanted, which I drive now. Well, it's my third BMW, but the BMW that I wanted. He had these two Weimaraners and he seemed very successful in business. So he was always so nice. He drove all the way down to the bakery, which is about 20 minutes outside of Dallas. And I said, I really want to drive a car like yours. He goes, oh, you should. BMWs are the best. He's like, it's Bavarian
Hmm.
Motorworks. And I was like, Bavarian Motorworks. Ooh, that's what I want. Because like I said, I drove a hoopty, right? And a bus. Okay. And so he said to me, he said, there's this mall that's opening up,
Hmm.
neighborhood, and it's all $1 million houses. And do you know what people who have $1 million houses have? And I said, mortgages? He said, no, dogs. And I said, oh. He goes, you should go and open a kiosk and I'm going to help you. So he came down the next weekend. He came up with a little business plan. He showed me how to do it.
Yeah.
And he was my little angel. And we went to the mall together, him and I and his husband. And I saw all these people with shopping bags. And I went into the mall office and it took some negotiating because they wanted a lot of money. And all I had was like $475 extra. And this guy and I went in there and I told him my story and he went home and I took the bus back up there 3 or 4 times to convince the mall manager to give me a shot. And he finally did it he was like, you are so persistent. I go, I don't lose, brother. I don't lose. I either walk away or I win. And
Yeah.
I opened up my kiosk. And the very first weekend I did in 3 days what I did in wholesale an entire month.
Oh, wow.
So I went from the kiosk after a year to an inline store in Plano, which is a very upscale neighborhood. I think it's 75093 is the top 5 most expensive neighborhoods in the United States.
Yeah.
And that's how I started that business. But I started my first business when I was 8. And I made, a couple of $100 off of that. So it instilled into me that, you can really create your own business and be successful and have whatever kind of life you want. But in between all of the situations that happened along the way, I was so anchored in that I had to be a workaholic, and I had to,
Yeah.
I used to do speeches to help women get loans in business as a business leader and for minority women. And then I would start my speech with, if you don't eat, sleep, sweat, and boink about your business,
Yeah.
SES, okay, then get the F out of this room.
Yeah.
Because I was like, if you're not that dedicated to winning, you're in the wrong place, and I'm the wrong person to help you.
Yep.
To creating my very successful Lamont PR media empire, and working with NBC Uni, working with Travel Channel, working with national clients. But like I said, I was having so much emotional heartache at home that I had to divorce my husband. And in that process, it was just too much for my brain to process at that time.
Yeah.
So I attempted to unalive myself. And when I woke up, I thought, I have to have a brain tumor. There's something wrong with me. Like, why would I have made it through all of this to not to want to do this now? I went and
Yeah.
got my brain scanned, no tumor. So I started going to, I decided to figure out what was wrong with my brain. And I went back to school and found out that we have a little thing behind our ear called an amygdala. Do you know what that is?
No.
So the amygdala, it is the automatic response system. It's this little bitty, tiny little bitty thing, and it's on both sides of your brain, right behind your ear. And it triggers your fight, flight, fear, fornicate. There's 7 F's that it triggers. And the only thing that it does is it automatically tells you, you should be scared, you should be protected, you should be worried. And the only cure for the amygdala is to meditate. And for an ADHD dyslexic person who had all this rage, to sit down in a room and be quiet, well, that was an impossibility for me. But I did it, and then kind of just started studying spirituality, studying the mind, understanding the actual mathematical equation of everything that you're processing at all times. And are you in a energetic and vibrational universe, or are you in a 3D dimensional universe where it's all cause and effect? And as Albert Einstein says, when you match the vibration and frequency, it is absolutely has to appear. This is physics. And we don't really get taught about the vibrational universe. We get taught how to be a worker. Nothing in our United States education system teaches you to be an entrepreneur, because they need so many people to be indoctrinated into a square peg that you can fit into this business, or you can fit into this business, or security of a pension, or security of this.
Right.
Handcuffed to their ability to make massive money, and you be a component like a computer or a robot or even a trash can in the office.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you sharing about the, I actually made a note of this. You said the amygdala, is that right?
Amygdala, AMY. Yeah.
Amygdala. Okay. That was really key right there. And it's a key takeaway actually from this episode that I wanted to document. But I wanted to ask you, since we're talking about the business side of it, Lamont PR and all of that, I noticed on your bio, you had mentioned that you went from this failed suicide attempt that you talked about to being able to manifest interviews with the likes of Oprah and Kim Kardashian and Cindy Crawford. And I wanted to bring that up because let's face it, without going too much down rabbit hole, but you were so right about being indoctrinated into the system and being taught to operate within the metrics, not how to steer the matrix, so to speak. And I'm sure listeners are actually curious to know because these are household names, right? Oprah and Kim Kardashian and
On
Cindy Crawford.
the cover of Time last year, they had the 5 most powerful women on the planet, and 2 of them, one was Cindy Crawford and one was Oprah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. And I'm actually curious, how did that all come about? Can you share a little bit about those stories?
Yeah, so I, was really into, and I also manifested a TEDx speech, and there was 3,000 people applying without even applying. Okay.
Yeah.
Like the universe, when you understand the vibrational essence of the universe, everything completely changes. And as a lifelong entrepreneur who saw her mom 8 months pregnant laying tile, I was 100% convinced it was my hustle and my flow that would make it happen. But once I understood this, I've never made more money. I live in $1 million home on the water. There's dolphins all day in my backyard.
Wow.
I work like 20 hours a week. I make insane money because I'm a vibrational match to that abundance. So the Oprah situation was, I had an intern when I had the PR agency, and she ended up starting her own agency. And like it or not, if you're a Black female, it's a lot more difficult for you to get clients in a red state like Texas, especially in Dallas, Texas. So this young lady was also a single mother. Her husband had died serving our country, and she was African-American, Black. And she had called me at the very last minute and said, Michelle, I have a huge favor. Can you please drive 45 minutes at night in the rain? I'm like, hell no. I'm about to have a glass of Cabernet and watch my housewives, And she was like, Michelle, I need you to check the media desk. I need you to help me. My person didn't show up. I don't know what to do. I can't train somebody. We need you on the desk. On the desk means makeup, Spanx, heels, hair. All right. I'm like, I'm not putting on makeup. I'm not wearing makeup here. I'm not putting on makeup. I have lip gloss, right? Chapstick.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not putting on makeup, strapping myself into a black, staple dress, pulling my hair up in a bun, making sure I'm spending the whole time driving in the rain, putting on makeup. So I go, look, I'm coming, but I'm coming exactly how I am, in an ill-fitted black dress with flats. And as soon as everybody's checked in, I'm leaving. I'm putting my hair in a bun, She's like, okay, thank you. Thank you. Well, I drive the 45 minutes. And when I get there, I had a book that I had written down the 19 things I wanted to manifest. And number 3 was a one-on-one with Oprah, because I had heard that Oprah was coming to Dallas. Now, I have paid close to about $1,500 at that point to hear Oprah speak, front row tickets, VIP passes. I wanted her to sweat on me. I was like, give me some of your Oprah juice. I want to be the queen. And I couldn't even get 6 feet next to her. Like, no matter how much money I paid, I couldn't get next to Oprah.
Yeah.
So when I heard she was coming, I was like, oh, I'm going to call every PR person I've ever helped and call in every chance I can to get this. Because it was a closed red carpet, there was no opportunity to get a single pass. Like, even the TV stations would get 50, they got 3. It was like a cameraman, a reporter, and your producer. That's it. Nobody was getting on this carpet. So I drive for 45 minutes, and I go and I get in, and she goes, Michelle, what are you doing here? I'm like, am I in the Twilight Zone? Did we not have a conversation? I go, what do you mean? And she was like, the other chick showed up. I left you 3 voicemails. I opened my phone. It says no missed calls. Go to my voicemail. It's right there, her voicemail. So you can see the universe was like, we're going to get you there. We're going to get you there. And what did they do? Use my big old heart, because I knew she was a single mom. I knew the situation. I'm driving here in the middle of the night in the rain. I'm like, oh, I'm such a nice person. I hate myself right now, kind of energy. And so she goes, well, why don't you walk around the room? And if you stay for the group photo, I can give you a free weekend at this hotel. It was a new hotel launch. And I'm like, okay. She's like, go eat. Well, I'm a vegan. And it was all like barbecue and ribs. It's Texas. All right.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to eat. All the way on the other side of the room, there's this woman sitting in a chair, clacking away on her BlackBerry. And all of a sudden, now, I'm meditating every single day. This is my 3rd year of really trying to, I've got this degree. I've got these really strong energetic practices, and I'm listening to my meditation. And what you have to remember that if prayer is you talking to a higher divinity source, your intuition is that source talking back to you.
Yeah.
You're not crazy. You're just not listening. And so you start rejecting it. Oh no, I'm a loser. No one's going to buy this. This isn't going to happen, whatever you want to believe. But instead, now I'm on this vibrational universe and I'm like, all right, I'll go. If the universe is asking me to go, there must be another reason. And then she was like, just wait and you can get the free weekend. So I thought, oh, the girls would love that. My nieces, let me give them, we'll have a little slumber party. It's a nice hotel. We'll go do the spa. It'll be cute. So I wait around and I see this woman all by herself on the other end of the room, just hacking away on her BlackBerry. And I heard in my voice, go talk to her. And I did not want to do this. And it said it again. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm looking around, like, where else could I sit? There was nowhere to sit. So I walk over to the other side of the room and I sit next to her. And I said, I know this is going to sound extremely strange, but, it was the first time I'd said it out loud. I'm a mindset and manifestation coach, and I think the universe brought me here to help you. And she looked at me like I was a full-on alien and my face was melting. She was like pulling away. She's like, what did you say? What did you say? She's angry, right? And then I heard like, keep going. So I said, I didn't tell her I was a publicist. I just said, I think that the universe wants me to help you. I think there's something going on in your life that you can't solve. I don't know what it is, but I know that I was sent here to help somebody, and I believe it's you. So I explained to her my program. I said, I'm going to do it for free, that I need case studies.
Yeah.
So she nods her head, gives me her phone numbers. I'm sure she's probably like, let me just appease the crazy Colombian and, and I'll never talk to her again. Well, at that moment, a producer from ABC that I was very good friends with walked by and she goes, Michelle, what are you doing here? And I said, I don't really know. I think I'm here to help her. And this person was also a publicist and knew exactly who that person was. And she stands and she goes, do you know her? She's like, girl, this woman has helped me get so many things. Do you know about manifesting? And so now this person, Kayla Tucker Adams, Dallas PR, if you need Dallas PR, hire Kayla Tucker Adams. She's an awesome publicist. So Kayla Tucker Adams, the producer, Shannon and I all get in, we get our free little baggie, we take our group picture, we get in the elevator and we all decide to leave. So we're down at the bottom of the lobby and the elevator opens. And I say to the three of us, I said, sisters, let's hold hands and say one really beautiful thing that's happened in our life. So we drive home in the highest frequency possible. So Shannon says, my daughter rolled over on her side all by herself. She just adopted this beautiful girl. She's like, she rolled over. And we're all like, oh. And then I said, something about my dog or, something like that. Cause I don't have children. So I was like, I've been pregnant 5 times, just no children. And so I've had 5 miscarriages. And so I said some little anecdote about my dog and everybody said, oh. Then Kayla turns to the right and then she turns to the left and she goes, y'all can't tell anybody. And we're like, what? And I thought for sure it was going to be like an athlete in trouble. And she got this big deal with one of the, and she goes, I just got the contract literally 30 minutes ago. I'm officially representing Oprah Winfrey when she comes to Dallas.
Oh, wow.
At that point, there are 7.2 million people in the city of Dallas. I never had heard or known or knew of Kayla.
Mm-hmm.
And this girl, my intern, was my intern 4 years ago.
Oh,
So
wow.
when you start to lean in and trust the universe and trust the vibrations and trust the intuitive guides, you can turn anything into $1 million idea. You can move the mountains with just your thoughts.
Yeah.
See, here's the truth of it. The people who find magic are the ones who are looking for it. So if you're seeking the mountain, you're going to find the mountain. But if you're seeking the magic in you will make that magic. And it will be the most unbelievable way to manifest things into your business, into your clients, into your reality. My very first class, I started my podcast in 2020, Manifesting Miracles. And in December, I created my 6-week class for January. I didn't know what I was doing. I never done anything like that. Sold it out the first day I listed it.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That is, we're talking about manifestation, and this is still a new thing to me, even though, and it's new in the sense because there's a lot of similarities that you talked about from a family background, because I mean, nobody has ever done what I'm doing, like in my family ever. I'm the first
Yeah.
to things like, my father is an entrepreneur and he has a successful business, but manifestation and meditation and all these things are not a part of the day to day. And sorry about that. That was actually perfect timing because as part of this crazy training workout thing that I'm doing, so I'm training for a half Ironman, which is the first of insane probably triathlons I will ever do. So I have to drink over a gallon of water per day, and let's face it, that I haven't, well, first of all, drinking water in itself has been a brand new thing for me because growing up as an Eastern European, I mean, I ate everything I wanted. I drank everything I wanted. I didn't really have to worry about my metabolism until probably my early 30s. And then I kind of woke up one day. I was like, well, fuck, I better watch what I'm eating now, because literally I drink 2 Cokes and then I get a belly, and it's like, all right, that ain't going to work. So it was good timing, but let's pick up where we left off, where you were talking about, where you were going with the manifestation. You were talking about how the universe was coming together. And I'm glad that we're talking about manifestation because, you are proof, like you just said a couple minutes ago. I live in a house where there's dolphins behind me, and most people are like, wait, you got dolphins out behind your house?
I will take this laptop and take it outside and we will see dolphins right now.
Do it. Let's do it. This is something we don't see on.
Now watch, they won't be there, but you'll see the house and you'll get
absolutely.
All right, now the dogs are gonna get past. They're like, why are we going outside, mommy? Okay. So here we are. Let's go for it.
I mean, this is the $1 million view. I mean,
here we go. Let's see it. All right.
Oh my gosh. See, that's a gorgeous view right there. See, this is what people don't see. This is why exactly I wanted you to show it, because people don't, first of all, most people don't believe that they can manifest. I mean, you have a beautiful house on the water, exotic location. What is it? Probably 70, 80 degrees.
Yep, 72.
72 degrees. Here I am in the Midwest. It's, I think, 45 degrees outside.
that guy's about 200,000. That house is 1.8 million. That one's 1.2. That one's 1.6. This one's 1. Okay.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, because this is what, I mean, this is as real as it gets, right? I mean, as real as it gets, because most people don't believe in manifestation. Most people don't believe, like we were talking about earlier, that I think as part of the American education system, we're all taught to be workers. Yeah. I'm proof of it, because I dropped out of college. I barely graduated high school, and there's a huge backstory to that. But I'm glad and that's why I wanted you to share that view, so people can see that you can manifest the life that you desire if you have the will to do it. because most people think that, well, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good looking enough, I don't have enough money, I'm not talented enough, I'm not athletic enough, you know, like all these excuses. And it's actually really rejuvenating that we're talking about manifestation, because I, just like probably many other people, are on a path of my own trying to figure out, how do I manifest this life that I've aspired? Like, how do I know I can be in the best shape of my life. For instance, believe it or not, just this past weekend, I ended up running on the treadmill for 22 minutes straight
Wow.
at 3.8 miles. I'm 43 years old, and I've
Wow.
never in my entire life ever done anything like this. You know, I've cycled 50, 60 miles without stopping. And I've been a cyclist for 13 years. So it's just like, when you were sharing about your story, how you know, in your story, manifested an interview with Oprah and Kim Kardashian and Cindy Crawford, not to mention you manifested the life that you have right now, regardless of the setbacks that you have. Like, you even mentioned, you know, I've been pregnant 5 times, but you didn't, you know, the miscarriage, like your family and the emotional abuse and all of that, like none of that held you back from pursuing what you always aspired to accomplish. And I think that's really important, because, you know, especially entrepreneurs, most entrepreneurs quit in the first 4 years. They give
Absolutely.
up, they go get a job because shit gets hard, you know?
Yep. And
Like,
shit
I
gets
know,
real.
what's that?
Shit gets real. Mortgage payments are due.
Yep.
Children, soccer bags, tennis shoes, parent trips, teachers, vacations, Christmas. So you get anchored into fear.
Yep.
And because we're a vibrational universe, so many of the entrepreneurs that I work with, because I have such a strong entrepreneurial background, when people listen to my podcast, you're hearing all these stories of, you know, how this client did this and this client did that. The one thing that everybody doesn't get, that if I could just wave the Michelle wand and say, you get $1 million and you get $1 million and you get $1 million, is that you're recreating and living in a vibrational universe where you saw somebody, or somebody taught you, or somebody told you of your worthlessness. And you anchored that in and said, yeah, I'm too black, I'm too brown, I'm too round, I'm too short, I'm too ugly, I don't have the right last name, I don't have the right history, I don't have the connections, I cannot do it. And in that moment, the universe doesn't judge whether this is good or bad. The universe is just responding to your vibration. So the more that you complain that nobody's buying your tickets and nobody's buying your events, you're now excited because you've agreed that you're a failure. So your vibration is now emanating that. So the universe
Yep.
is like, here's more people who are going to cancel. Let's see how happy they get, because they always talk about it. And you're like, why aren't you helping me? Ah. And the universe is like, what do you mean? All you talk about is your failure. And all you're anchored into is your history. And I would challenge you to write a letter to that version of you where nobody showed up for you, and show up for that version of you. And if you can't remember it enough, like I was 10, all right, that's a very tender age to become homeless and familyless and start
Yep.
being abused, right? So what I did was I found a photo of me right around that time, and I looked up all the songs that were popular during that era. And I sat down with my spiral and I looked at that version of Michelita Juanita Lamont. And I looked at Michelita and I was listening to that music. And finally I felt that vibration of her. And I wrote that letter to her, telling her to be strong, telling her that I would get better, explaining to her that she did nothing wrong. And that,
Yeah.
you know, being an immigrant and not having a family and not having anybody care if you eat or die or whatever is only a small part of your story, baby. And I just wrote it to her like I was her best friend. And then I folded the paper away, because you want to remove things by folding them away. And I set it on fire and I say, I transmute this energy. And it was something about showing up for that version of me
Yeah.
when when nobody would or nobody could, that really allowed me to start forgiving then the first person who beat me, the first person who sexually assaulted me, the first person, whoever, then during my marriage, then the babies and my father and all of that kind of stuff, because it started something in me. And I bet in everybody who's listening, somebody told them, well, I'm not buying that for you. It's too expensive. You can't do that. You need job security. And because they were never taught and they didn't see it in other people, like maybe they didn't have an immigrant parents. Immigrants are very different than Americans, because in their country, these types of opportunities are just not are possible, between paying people off for licenses to get this kind of business or that kind of business. It's all payola and who and in other countries. And the American dream is the American dream. I mean, it's obviously becoming very disenfranchised now with the different policies and the way the America is going. But at the same time, there's never been more chances for people to have digital businesses and online companies. I have a client that was a foot model, not the kind that fancy shoes. Her business was OnlyFans. Or fans.
Oh, okay.
Where it was sexual foot photos in a way, right?
Yeah.
And she, during the pandemic, couldn't go to work. Okay. And then when they called her back in, they called her way too early, and she had children who were sick, and she couldn't expose those children to somebody at the office. So she had a daughter on a respirator, and she had a son who had an autoimmune disease.
Yeah.
She started taking pictures of her feet on Fans Only or OnlyFans. I forgot what it's called.
OnlyFans, yeah.
OnlyFans. And she made so much money of her stupid freaking feet. She created a digital course, how to sell your feet on OnlyFans. She has not worked a traditional job. And for this new year, she signed up for one of my live classes, and she's like, I love Michelle. I listened to the podcast. It's changed my life. I had to take the digital class. And two of the girls bought the foot course in my course from her. And she was like,
wow.
I make so much money teaching people how to do what I did. So this is to say, like 5 years ago, nobody would have said, oh, you're a foot model, right? So whatever's going to come next is waiting for you to be that person to create it.
I want to touch upon what you just talked about, because it's so ironic, because I did a story on my Instagram this morning that was kind of inspired by something that Andy Frisella mentioned recently, someone that I followed for, just because I'm in St. Louis. He's a household name here. First Form is 30 minutes from my house, and I buy their supplements, obviously. So, but something that I was reminded of, that I've probably struggled for a vast majority of my life, because for one, I was bullied all through high school. I was the kid with the glasses, long hair. Mind you, I spoke
Eastern
4
European.
languages, Eastern European.
Yeah.
I was actually the most athletic in my class. I was the smartest, like book smart, and I let all that shit go away. But I talked about this morning, what you were just saying, actually, that the reality of things is nobody gives a fuck.
Yep.
Okay, nobody gives a fuck. And nobody probably ever will give a fuck. The only time people will actually give a fuck is, and I'm noticing this as part of my journey, and that's why I'm talking about it, is only if it benefits them in some way. If it only benefits them in some way. So prime example, here you are, very successful, you live in a multi-million-dollar home, you've built these businesses, but that wasn't always the case, right? So now the crowd of people around Michelle are, oh, hey, Michelle, how about this? Or how about that? Or what about, did you see me when nobody else fucking saw me? Like, because literally nobody remembers that, right? They'll only see you when you accomplish a status.
It's
That's
always
the society we live in.
when somebody says like, well, you're rich. I'm like, what? No, I still think of myself as like the Domino's employee and the delivering Instacart kind of vibes of my time.
It's funny. So it's actually very ironic you just said that too, because I think personally, this is my personal thought. I think the most prominent entrepreneurs are the most humble.
Yeah.
They're the most real, and they never really get phased at money, because whether you have $5 in your pocket or $50 million, to you, it's just a monetary exchange for value. That's it. That's all it is. Because and this is just speaking from personal experience, but you actually attest to that, which I'm very excited, because it goes to show that, you know, you've done all these things, you've been successful in business, you've built prominent entities, but you're still, like you said, you look at it yourself as that Domino's employee.
Mhm.
You look at yourself in a very humble way. And I'm a huge fan for people who have that kind of humble mindset, because whether, you know, let's say tomorrow, you know, you strike your next business, you'll still keep doing what you're doing today, because that's what you love doing.
Right.
That's which actually brings me to another question that I actually want to ask you. You know, you've done all these different things, you know, business, your personal journey, now being a coach, also working with a variety of people, but what keeps you going?
You know, since I started the podcast, I've had, in 2 years and 3 months or 5 months, 17 letters of people who were going to kill themselves, and they found manifesting miracles, and they started listening and decided to not die.
Yeah.
I yesterday I purposely go to like local restaurants, not chain restaurants, and there was this young lady working, and she was 5 months pregnant. And I just casually, you know, just said, "So what's going on with you?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm trying to get back to school. Um, I was gonna be married, and my boyfriend was hit and killed by a drunk driver. It was too late to not be a mom, so now I dropped out of school. Both my parents are dead. He doesn't have any family, and I have this baby that's coming. So I'm waiting tables, and I'm taking night school." So I said, "Well, it's very commendable. I'd love for you to take one of my courses." And I gave her the code to take all my digital courses for free. And she just started freaking out. She started crying. She's like, "I love manifesting. I want to learn how to do this." And my total bill, including the little salad to go, was $29, and I tipped her 300. Now, in order for you to be a vibrational match to wealth, you have to spread the energy around. And you can't think that I just did something amazing. What you have to think is, energetically, she needed a solution, and I was that. So when I need a solution, the universe is going to send me the top tier client, the top tier opportunity, the top tier whatever, because I give freely. And I don't think of money as something to hoard. I think it's something to spread around and to give people and to be generous with. Because if it's just about money, I could go literally back to PR and within 6 months be making $250,000 a year again instantly. I already know the contracts, right? I already know, I've already been offered that and more to come and work for corporations, because I'm just so dogged in my pursuit of winning. And so money, to me, it really is just another energy. And I don't give, people put money on a pedestal. They worship money, they idolize money, they revolve their whole life around it, but it's simply a tool like oxygen and water. And when you start to separate the importance of money and you start to really connect to what you're doing, the universe is going to open every door and unlock every key and make it as interesting and as wonderful as you'll allow the magic of you to be. Now, in that, girls, now I did it and I kept the paper folded till I have everything going. And then I walk out the door and leave it at the register. And I said, "Could you give this to the attendant?" And then my credit card company was like, "Hey, you left this much amount tip this morning, this morning, like this was a mistake." I said, "No,
Yeah.
it's correct."
It was legit.
It's legit. Why? I would have died when I was a waitress if somebody left me 100% tip, but 1,000% tip? No, I've never experienced anything like that. And for her, it might just be she could take a couple of days off and rest her feet. Maybe she could
Yeah.
fix something with her car. Maybe she could pay for a prenatal class. I don't know. But it didn't matter. I'm not there to solve your problems, but I'm here to help you believe and have faith that what's coming is way better than everything you're leaving. And
Yeah.
if you walk into that vibration, everything will keep you going. People not committing suicide, people changing their life, making somebody feel like their prayers were answered over $300 stupid dollars. And
You
so,
know,
go ahead.
well, one thing that you were just talking about that I wanted to touch upon, I think, with the state of the economy, a lot of people are faced by financial challenges. And I think I know personally going through the ups and downs, the typical entrepreneurial stuff, and definitely have made leaps and bounds in that aspect. But I do know, 6 years ago I was bankrupt. Literally, I had to put together $500 that I didn't even have to walk into an attorney to file for a Chapter 13, which later I found out was really just a repayment plan.
Yeah.
And it just gets stuck on your fucking credit. And then, which they tell you will stay there for 7 years, but you can get it removed sooner than that. But the point I'm trying to make is just that what you're talking about is very powerful for a reason, the vibration, the manifestation, yet so many people get encapsulated by the minutia of day-to-day life and think that, well, without money, I can't do anything. They see money as the ultimate limitation for their own capabilities. And here's a prime example that I think recently I've really kind of stepped into personally. So with my fitness journey right now, training for this half Ironman, it's pretty intense. I've never, ever done anything like this. And just over the last 2 months have been really difficult. Business, family stuff. I got 2 kids. I have a wife, head of household. You get it.
Yes.
Bills do all that good shit, right? And so,
yeah.
But with my fitness journey, what I found out is that, the more I push myself, especially on the days where I don't want to go to the gym,
Right.
there's no point to going to the gym. Why should I go to the gym? I can skip today. I can make up tomorrow. And the next thing I found out was, well, you know what? Tomorrow comes, I'm not going to do it again. And I'm not going to do it again. And it just becomes a chain effect. It becomes an enigma eventually. Now, when I push myself, what I found is that mentally, I'm capable of being able to manifest more and think more in a positive state and really stay attached to my purpose. What is it that I want to accomplish? What is the ultimate goal? Why am I doing what I'm doing? I love what I'm doing. I love the marketing, the digital stuff. I've done that for over 2 decades. I'm passionate about it because I want to help people. That's really why I'm in it. But let's face it. We live in a world where I know, at least personally, you get bogged down with, well, this and that, and money and bills and that. It's like that you forget. It's like, wait, hold on a second. This is all noise.
Right.
This is all noise. And so when you were talking about the waitress that you tipped her $300, it was a good faith. It was a good gesture to help. And like you said, you attract more of that the more you do good in the world. When, let's face it, a lot of people are so, like you said, they praise money, they idolize money, because the saddening part is, I think Bradley was even talking about it recently. Most Americans would actually take $1 million over waking up tomorrow. That's the saddening world that we live in, and they don't realize that. Wait, hold on a second. How in the fuck are you going to spend $1 million if you don't even wake up tomorrow? You're going to be dead. How is that money going to get spent if you're dead? But people are so encapsulated into the materialistic bullshit of what's happening in the society that they're forgetting about, what did I set out to do? What is my real mission? What is my goal? Do I even have a goal? Or do I just want to make a pile of money and then say, all right, I made a pile of money, paid my bills. Now what?
Well, there was a recent study. 87% of lottery winners were worse off 5 years after winning the lottery.
Yep.
Why? They were only a vibrational match to one idea: win the lottery. And they said it over and over and over again until they became a vibrational match to it. They weren't a vibrational match to wealth. They weren't a vibrational match to financial freedom. They weren't a vibrational match to the money they got. So it came as quickly as it got, and they got in debt. So 87% of people who got that winning lottery Powerball number 5 years later have more debt than before they win the lottery. You're a vibrational match to what you want to create in this world. And if you want to create financial freedom, if you want to wake up whenever you want to wake up, do what you want to do, set your times and live that vibrational frequency, then you have to want it for everybody, not just yourself.
Yeah.
I have a client, I'll give you an example here. She was a realtor and she had never sold a house. She was like, I have 21 clients. I can't get a house sold, yada, yada, yada. So we dig deep. She had worked at a Fortune 500 company. She was making about $260,000 a year and was fired. It never broke, like it broke her so much that her husband was a doctor and he could carry everything. But when you have two people making significant income, you have significant bills.
Yeah.
So, you're not living a $275,000 life. You're living a $1 million life, making $500,000 over a year. So you're not really ahead ever. And of course, the kids in private school and yada, yada. So I said to her, I said, okay, my love, you believe that everybody sees you, whether you believe it or not, as a loser because you were fired from a job you were never supposed to have.
Yeah.
So you're talking about you signed up this person, and nobody's moving and nobody's closing. But all of the conversations are about you. You want to sell it. You want to get the listing. You want to make the commission. This is the biggest investment this family is probably ever going to make in their lives. And all you're connected to is what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Why don't you start telling the story of how these people couldn't get, qualified and you jumped through all the hoops and you made everything happen. And now that their child and they're going to the right school district and they're going to get the right teachers and they're going to have the right opportunities and they're going to make the right friends. And you're a part of this history and the biggest investment in their lives, and put your heart and soul into the family, making some, little arepas ahí on the counter and making some little eggs and making Girl Scout cookies and all the things that they're going to do as a family, as opposed to your fucking commission.
Yeah.
She,
good point.
right? So she started doing shadow work. We were doing I do a 6 weeks program and a 90-day program for coaching. And the reason I don't do longer is because your mind starts to become attached to that I'm the answer. And psychologically, it's disservice to somebody to coach with them longer than 4 months. So yes, I have to have a lot of turnover, but ethically, I don't care. So she does the 6 weeks program, and she ends up taking my live course. And the second day of the live course, she gets her first sale. And she said, Michelle, I wrote letters in my journal to all the families, like, you're going to find your favorite teacher. They're going to find their best friend. They're going to get their bike path, all these beautiful things about being in that home. And wouldn't you know it, I hadn't sold a house in an entire year, in a year where everybody's buying houses. And she sells her first house when we're going into a recession. And I said, honey, the recession is only important for the people who live a vibrational universe of lack. Have you ever seen where people make billions of dollars in every economy? It's because they don't believe it. Now, there's a very famous quote by J.P. Morgan. Millionaires don't listen to astrology. Billionaires do. Why?
Yeah.
Because they know that we have 156 billion with a B galaxies like ours. So all of these galaxies and all of these planets are in collaboration with the magnetic poles of this universe. This is a vibrational mathematical universe. And once you start to lock yourself into everything's fine, you don't get swept up and caught up in fear, doubt, shame, lack, recession, whatever. And people can say, well, that's easy to say. No, it's not. I still have to make sales. I still have to make payments. I don't have a magic, who's going to pay my bills? I'm not married. I'm not seeing anybody. By the way, I'm single. Okay. So anybody watching, you have a nice uncle or a nice brother. Michelle's the girl. But whoever is in the reality where, like you said, in the Matrix, do you want to take the red pill and go back to the way everything was? Or do you want to take the blue pill and see what's coming? Take the blue pill. Now, Buddha, one of my favorite quotes from Buddha is suffering. Suffering is living in a moment that has already passed, or worrying about a moment that has yet to occur. But when you stay exactly where you are, everything's fine. And so I had somebody one time say, Michelle, I've never manifested anything. I live in my parents' house. I have a college degree. I just left teaching. I can't make any money. And I said, did you pay for everything in your room? She's like, yeah. I said, get a pen and paper out and write every single thing that you manifested down with a dollar amount. And let's see how much that totals to. Well, it totaled to $7,500. And I said, so you've manifested $7,500 in your short time. Who's to say you can't manifest 75,000 or 700,000 or 7 million? This is just a mind game that you're playing against you and you. Yeah. So whatever you believe, you will really receive that. So if you believe the economy is going to suck and money is scarce and no one's going to sign up and we have to buckle down, then you're right. That's exactly the universe that you're going to be creating in.
You know, believe it to achieve it is a very common saying that in the entrepreneurial community gets thrown around. Mm-hmm. And as you were talking about this, speaking of vibrations, and you were talking about what billionaires believe, you're just speaking from personal experience. I think just because the way my life has panned out and the experiences that I've had, and being divorced once, married for a second time, being bankrupt, being bullied, all through high school, and struggling with self-confidence and self-esteem for a long time, and all of this, I very much, like probably many people, believe that we're all meant for something. We're all meant for. God put us on this earth with a purpose, and I think maybe the $1 trillion question, I should say, is what is your purpose on this earth? Because that's what people spend the rest of their life trying to figure out, right? Most people cave in and say, all right, I was meant to work a 9 to 5. I was meant to go to college. I was meant to be broke after my salary just because everybody else is broke. I was meant to be married and have kids and maybe tuck some money away. And before I know it, I wake up at 75 and I'm fucking bored. And by that time, I know tick tock, my time is almost up. And so 2 years ago, we had a death in the family. It was on my wife's side, and it was her grandfather, who was, big key component to the family. And he was really the glue to the family on her side. And I just kind of look, a veteran. He worked 40 years on the railroad, just an amazing guy. This was the guy that would cut the turkey and let everybody else eat the turkey at Thanksgiving first before he got a piece. Just that humbling. And after he passed away, I'm 43 years old, and I sort of had this epiphany. I was like, fuck, is this going to be me at 77 years old? Right. Like, who knows? I could fucking die tomorrow. I could get hit by a bus, or, run over by a car, or get into an accident. I don't know. And so I got to thinking what you were saying, and hence why I got so gravitated towards you and having you on the show and the podcast to share your story, is because there's a very small percentage of people who believe in manifestation, because they haven't done it. Nobody else has done it. So it's kind of like, well, if others haven't really done it, you're surrounded around with people who don't believe in manifestation, then you're going to believe that, right? It's kind of like there's a saying goes, you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. Well, guess what? If you're surrounded with people who work 9 to 5 and they just do the norm, that's exactly what you're going to believe. It's exactly what you're going to believe. But if you start surrounding yourself with millionaires, billionaires, people like you who have manifested, the life that you only dreamed of, suddenly you realize, maybe there is a different way. I just need different people in my life. And then you suddenly find out that 99% of the people that you had in your life are not the people you were meant to be around. And
Well,
that's
you were meant to be around them at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Because you were a vibrational match to them, meaning they had doubt, they had fear, you have doubt, you have fear, so you guys are an equal match. And as you start to elevate your energy, and you start to see like, hey, if I want magical things to appear into my reality, I have to become a little bit more magical, right?
Yeah.
And, Einstein had a quote saying that the true definition of intelligence is somebody who is open to everything and attached to nothing. And I studied all these different types of people during my spiritual awakening because I was so convinced that if I didn't hustle, I didn't push, I didn't network, I wasn't making 40 fucking cold calls a day, I was never going to be a success. I had grown up in that old school mentality.
Yeah.
So for me, manifesting was a joke. I was like, I remember I was young and I don't remember which business I had, but Oprah, who I would one day interview and meet, had the chick on that wrote The Secret. Now,
okay.
So The Secret and the law of attraction is manifesting. And so The Secret became a worldwide phenomenon. I think there was like 260 billion copies sold at that time. Well, more now. And this lady comes on TV and says, if you set your intention, you can just bring things into your reality. And I had never turned off the Oprah show in my whole life. And I turned it off. I was so angry. I started making fun of it. I said, oh yeah, you just whisper out loud, bring me a Bentley. And then you wake up and there's a Bentley in the front yard. Like, this sounds like absolute lunacy to me. And I'm a very analytical person. So to me, this was like the biggest bunch of malarkey that ever crossed the TV screen. And the fact is that manifesting has been around since everything. And in the Bible, if you believe in Christian Judeo principles, there's 250 different verses about manifesting. Even one is like, with the intention of a mustard seed, you can move a mountain, right? Very famous Bible verse.
Yeah.
In every religion, they talk about speaking it into your religion. In Arabic, abracadabra means to manifest, to create something into the reality. So in every aspect, in every walk of life, in every government system since the beginning of time, everybody has been manifesting. They just didn't know what to call it. And the manifesting is the art of bringing something from your thought to a reality. What is an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur is saying, I have an idea and I'm going to bring it to the reality. They're powerful manifestors. That's all they're doing. And so people get caught up in the woo-woo idea of manifesting, and they miss the big show. They miss the easy access. They miss the, let me walk in this light energy. And trust me, when I first found out about it, I was the biggest cynic and critic because I was such a hard worker. And that I could just like fold my fingers and move my head and like all of a sudden this genie is going to appear. Well, the genie always was there. Some people call it God. Some people call it angels. It's called higher self.
Yeah.
And your future self is consistently telling you when you're off your course. Why? You're depressed. You're not a vibrational match to your happiness. You're in the wrong situation. You're in the wrong marriage. You're in the wrong job. You're in the wrong state. You're in the wrong situation.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, vibrationally, everywhere you go, it feels like everything sucks. Everything costs too much money. How could blueberries be $17 fucking a container now, right? Like, what is this madness everywhere I go? Instead, let's say $17 blueberries happen. You live in a different vibrational universe. You get to the universe and the grocery store has a buy one, get two free, and your blueberries just turned back into $4.
You
So
know, but not to interject, but one of the things that you were talking about that I want to latch upon is, since we talked about entrepreneurship, I think there's this very common misconception in the entrepreneurial world where there's a materialistic perception of entrepreneurship, meaning that, I mean, let's face it. I mean, you go online, you look at Ty Lopez, Grant Cardone, Tony Robbins, you look at all these guys and they're like, fancy cars, big houses, blah, 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 all this. And that's how most people look at entrepreneurship. They look at the materialistic things, as opposed to, like you said, entrepreneurship is bring an idea into the universe, right? So the idea is, like, for me, is like, I want to help as many people get to what they want. That's basically the human centricity component of business that I call, basically, because this is coming from over a decade in the agency world and seeing an impersonal approach where it was like, all right, our quota, we got to sell. Let's get at least 90 days of checks, get paid. You know what? If the client bolts, as opposed to, why not fucking build a relationship that's going to last a lifetime? Why not really connect?
Right. Build a great campaign and let them flourish, and then they're never going to leave.
Exactly.
You need to rotate
Exactly.
90-day contracts, you know. I
Exactly.
can say more. And, you know, the other thing about it is, like, let's just look at a Grant Cardone.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
renting everything. Everything was fake, right? He lost all of his money. He lost his apartment. He lost his penthouse. And now he's doing like, you know, like ads and spokesmanship for anybody who will pay him, because he still has that clout and that name. What you're
Yeah.
looking at is not necessarily what's actually happening.
Yep.
So just because somebody's portraying that they can hire Kevin Hart to come and speak at their event doesn't mean that they didn't put their last $4 together to pay for the auditorium and to pay for Mr. Hart and to pay for all these things, because they need that supply chain. And so they need you to buy 25 more seats or triple X conference in your series and your, you know, whatever. So I had a friend who actually worked for them.
Yeah.
And behind the scenes, she told me all of it. And I can't expose any more than I said today, but one of her paychecks barely got cashed, and they had just had the Kevin Hart incident. Like, the Kevin Hart just spoke at their big event. And she was like, Michelle, they literally told me to wait and cash my check on Tuesday. So it's what you see online is you convincing yourself that you're a fucking loser. That's all that is for. Stop following people you'll never meet and that don't give a fuck about you. Start following people who have struggled and made it, didn't have any connections, didn't have any names, or then if you can't find that, just follow dogs or cats or animals or children laughing or dance video. Don't go online and reaffirm every time you click that button and your thumb makes an action what a fucking loser you are. Because vibrationally, you're like, I can never be as pretty as her. I can't have all these sales in this business. No. You will attract the people into your reality that you are a vibrational match to. So if you want more sales, you can't think I want more money. You have to think, how do I serve people more authentically?
Yeah.
What is it that they would be looking for that I'm really good at that might solve X for them? And when you start to dive into that relationship, the universe is going to, just like the girl at the restaurant, probably driving in her car, hoping it makes it one more shift, was like, Lord, please let me make $50 on this shift so I can pay for this busted tire. And the universe sent me instead, because she's probably really good. She's had a lot of situations that make her lose her faith in society. And listen, if you've ever had to roll coins and sleep on an air mattress to decide whether you can pay your electricity or pay your water, which I have done several times, you understand what poverty feels like. And you
Oh,
also,
been there, done that.
okay?
I've had, interestingly enough, you're talking about all these things, and I've even had in recency some of those things that have happened, Michelle. And it's back to what you were saying earlier, is that if you believe the things that happen in life, because let's face it, life is not all fucking unicorns and rainbows. It's far from it,
Right.
And when you have these things that happen to you, like 5 years ago when I was having my bankruptcy, I literally was going like this, Ivan, what the fuck did you do wrong? That's literally how I felt at that moment. It was on the cusp of, I think we were just a couple months away from my son being born. It's going to be 7 here in a week.
Yeah.
And so I literally was thinking to myself, Ivan, you're a fuck up. What did you do to get here? Instead of, like you said, it happened, but now focus on what you're going to do to keep leaping forward and not be here again. And let's face it, there's so many things that we can't control, but there's a lot that we can control too. Like
Not
an act
allow,
of God.
maybe not control, but
Mhm.
allow. I'm going to allow wealth into my life. I'm
Yeah.
going to allow prosperity into my life. I'm going to allow love. I'm going to allow security. It's safe for me to be successful.
Yeah.
These are things that we don't hear as entrepreneurs. What we hear is grind, hustle, push. If you're not up at 5 a.m. when everybody's sleeping, I read the 5 a.m. club. I've read everything. Okay. In fact, Ivan,
Yeah.
I read about 50 books a year.
Oh, wow.
I'm on book 14 this year. So when I tell you that I dive all the way deep because I don't want to be caught off guard, that was a reaction of being caught off guard, right? So I was like,
Yeah.
well, I'm never going to be in a situation where I don't know everything again and look like a fool or be in bankruptcy or lose all my money or whatever it was. So when we start to understand that if we just sit where we are right now, did we wake up today? Yeah. Is there food in that pantry? Couple of things. Anything in the fridge? Couple of things. Couple of bucks in the gas tank? Yeah. Well, you're living better than a lot of people. You're living better than a lot of people. And
Yeah.
when I moved here to St. Pete, the island of St. Pete, Florida, in 2021. And when I lived in Dallas, I volunteered at a homeless shelter doing coaching and helping get people get back on their feet and helping them recenter themselves. And this is just, volunteering.
Yeah.
The one thing that I would hear over and over again was they would just tell the story of their victories. You should have seen me, Michelle. I had a suit. I worked in an office. I had all this stuff. And then this happened and this happened and this happened.
Yeah.
And I became an alcoholic. Well, yeah, because you were so out of alignment and where you were was not where you're supposed to be. You had to numb everything. And that numbing could be overspending, oversexing, over drinking, drugs, shopping. You get to where you're trying to find an outlet instead of looking for the answers, because healing is an inside job. And one of the things that I would tell them is a statistic that is so shocking and that it hasn't changed. Less than 3% of the American population make a goal. Less than 3.
Yeah.
Well, if you put gas in the car, you're going to get somewhere, right? You can start the key, you can get the engine, you can get out the door, you're going to make it 20 miles, 80 miles, 60 miles, wherever. But until you put the GPS into the Waze or the car or whatever, you're just driving around aimlessly. So if you're an entrepreneur who hasn't created the future that they want, and you're still living in the history of no one's buying anything and it's not moving, and then you start saying the economy, well, of course, that lower vibration of fear and doubt and insecurity, it's going to be the highest vibration in your reality. So now you're talking to that all the time instead of speaking to your future. So when those things start to come up and start to choke you and you start to feel like you're going to die if you do not go back to work and work for somebody else, and it's not going to happen, I want you to examine where you learned this and then tell yourself a new story. Start with, this is today, and in this day, I've done everything I can, and I'm going to just let go of this day. This day was not the best day for me to anchor in being an entrepreneur. But tomorrow morning, I'm going to wake up, and when I wake up, I'm going to listen to something high vibrational, whether it's a frequency, a Sophia frequency. The God frequency is 174. Sun, if you live in cold weather, 126.6. Go on your treadmill, go in your living room, do jumping jacks, listen to that high frequency music, because in our brain, we have this reticular activation system, or the RAS. And the RAS is computing millions and millions of data points all day long, but its most important moments are the first 3 minutes of your day. So if you remember the dial-up, if you're too young to remember dial-up, that's okay. But when the internet first came out, we would have to call the internet and it would go pew, pew, wah, pew, pew, wah.
Dial up. Remember that.
Okay. So your iOS system is going like this, and it's going that 3 minutes, it's saying like, is there a connection? Is there a connection? You have that 3-minute grace period every single morning for the RAS, the reticular activation system in your brain, to get a new program. And if in that 3 minutes you say, everything's working out just fine. My clients are here. The money is here. The feeling is here. The vibration is here. And you start to feed into yourself the future. So let's say your goal is to take your family to Disney for a family vacation. Never done this. We want to see the mouse. We're going to go to the hotel. We're going to have the $25 mouse drinks. We're going to go all the way in. We're going to get the fast passes. But for a family of 4 for 3 days, that's like a $5,000 investment. And you can barely pay your bills, right? You're cracking through.
Yep.
Well, you're like this. So every day the universe is like, who's showing up? Disney or departure? And so in that reticular activation system, you're going to feed into yourself at least 10 things that you're focusing in on. We're going to go to Disney. I'm buying, you just visualize, all of us have the Mickey hats on. We just checked into the hotel. For that 10 minutes, you're just talking about Disney and how Disney is going to come. And and my daughter's going to love that she gets to have the breakfast with Cinderella. And then we're going to go do this. And then we're going to go take the tram. And then we're in Orlando, or we're in Epcot, or wherever we are. We're in California. And we're going to go to the beach, and we're going to go have this wonderful dinner. And my children are going to look and around and feel like this is the best family ever. Look at all the things that my family does. And they're going to believe that Mickey is always a possibility because mom or dad knows how to dream big. Or they get the parent that says, you better go to school and learn something because it's hard out here. And you better get a fucking education. You better do this and you better do this. And life is hard and everything sucks. Well, then you're creating more of the same of what you're fighting yourself.
You know, there's so much irony in what you just said about the Disney story, because that's actually something I want to do for my kids. You know, it's kind of like
psychic. I'll just be honest with you.
What's that?
I am psychic. So I'll just be honest. I'm sure I picked up Disney, but I don't know anything. I don't know. You said 7, but I don't know the ages of your children. I don't know your family vacation. But when we were talking, all of a sudden, this Mickey Mouse just starts appearing in my head. So I said, Disney. It's your higher self talking to me, because I'm a clear channel, because you don't meditate. And if you meditated, you would hear this.
Yep.
Okay?
Yeah, it's you're absolutely right. And the reason why I wanted to
I don't know if you meditate, but I know you don't meditate.
I don't. You're right. I don't. It's something that I know I need to do, but it's something I could never get into. You know, and that's probably just the problem is what am I not doing that I should be doing? You know, that's going to help me get to that next level that I want to get to. And when you were talking about Disney also, because it is one of the things I want to do with my kids, it's kind of a trip of a lifetime. I went to Disney when I was 16 with my parents, and I remember it's just one of those memorable experiences, right, that you do. But as you were talking about being in the wrong marriage and all this and kids and, the vibrational space that you need to be in. I was thinking about, the three things that I see as, if you want to live a prosperous life, then it's health, wealth, and happiness. Well, I'm getting the health, but that's because I've worked at getting to a whole new level that I've never been. Wealth, I have a part of the wealth, which is I'm blessed with a family. I'm blessed with 2 kids, which there's a whole story behind that, 7, 8 years ago, I didn't even know if I was going to be a father. Just seems such a distant thing that and it happened. And then happiness is I am happy, but I know I can be happier. I know I can be wealthier, and I want to be wealthier, and I want to be happier. But finding, which has been one of the biggest struggles for me personally, I think a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs that are probably going to be listening and watching this episode, is how do I get lots of health, lots of wealth, and lots of happiness? How do I get maximum overload of all of these 3 things to where it's like, I'm in the best shape. I got the 6-pack. I can do the triathlons. I'm wealthy. I got a beautiful family. I got a big house. I got an expensive car. I can go on vacation for 3 months and say, fuck it, and spend 50 G's on an entire vacation or whatever. And then I'm happy. Like, I'm generally happy. I'm happy with my marriage, with my kids. I'm happy in the life that I'm in. And I think that's just it, is that the reason most people never reach that, I know I haven't, is because we haven't positioned ourselves to accomplish that. Because we haven't, like you said, we believe, if you have negative people in your life, negativity becomes the constant. That's what you believe in, right? Because you accept fear, you accept insecurities, you accept all these things. And I'm one of those people that are like, nah, that's not true. I don't want to believe that. That's not real. I'm over here. This is what I really believe in. I believe I can have the ultimate health. I believe I can have the ultimate wealth. I believe I can have the ultimate happiness. But how do you get there? And I think that's, again, as we talked about earlier, most people, most entrepreneurs, strive for that for a lifetime because, they do certain things work, some things don't work, but being in the constant pursuit is really the ultimate challenge. Like being able to show up every day and strive for those 3 things in order to accomplish those 3 things. And even then, like you said, let's say hypothetically, one day I win the lottery. Well, do I become the 87% of that statistic you mentioned earlier? I don't want to become that because I've seen way too many fucking shows that, hey, I won the lottery. I had this lavish life. And guess what? 5 years later, I'm actually more broke financially than I ever was.
Yeah.
And it's like, because I think from a DNA perspective, I don't have that. I'm one of those people that, just speaking personally, probably a lot of people are going to watch and listen to this episode that probably share a similar DNA to where greed is not a part of it. It never was because I came from such humble beginnings. I mean, I lived in a communist country. I couldn't celebrate holidays until I was 9 years old. My father had $400 in his pocket 30 years ago when he immigrated here, and now he made something out of that. So greed was never a part of it. I don't think it ever will be because it's just not how I am built. But not to say that it's kind of like you've got the boss on one shoulder and then you got the devil on the other shoulder. Well, the devil is the best negotiator there. And the devil knows how to talk to you. But the boss is telling you that higher power that you talked about is you can do all these things. You just got to go after them. You got to position yourself mentally, spiritually, to be able to achieve those things. Because if you don't, you'll never achieve them. Devil's going, nah, don't go to the gym. Don't eat right. Don't connect with people. And he's so good at telling you all that, right? And you're like, yeah, sure. I'll skip the gym today. I'll skip the gym day tomorrow. I'll make up for it later. Before you know it, it's a week later. And now you just missed out on all these days. Your sleep is fucked up. You didn't get up on time. You didn't do the things that you were supposed to do as part of your routine. It just becomes a chain effect. And I think that's most entrepreneurs specifically, that they start out maybe very vigorous about their mission and their purpose, and then they just plateau.
So one of the things that I think would really be beneficial for people who are perhaps looking at the grass is greener mentality. Like,
Yeah.
it's going to be so much better when I have $250,000 in the bank. No, it's not. Because you're living in a reality where you're not worthy of the 250 right now. So you're saying the future, in the future, when everything goes well and I have $250,000 in the bank, then I'm going to be doing fine. Well, then you're always saying to yourself, I'm not worthy right now.
Yeah.
So what I would suggest is taking ownership and stock of the good things in your life right now. Honestly, if I didn't live in this house, my next goal is to get one of those vans and like a bus and convert it and travel around the country with me and my dogs and do my podcast and go to different beaches. I don't care about this. Is a nice house. I love it. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. Everybody wants to come and vacation here, but it's going to have a season where it's done and I'm not going to want to be here anymore. So if I'm now homeless living in a van, are in a bus, are you less impressed by me? So,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I want you to question why you feel that a big stockpile of money makes you a better version of yourself. It does not. This is the illusion. Instead, why wouldn't you concentrate on, no matter what happens, we're going to Disney before my 7-year-old turns 9. And all you do is follow Disney on Instagram and you put it on your Google alerts. What's going to happen? And I'm going to predict it right now. If you do with this, what I say, and you write a letter in your energetic life, you sit down and you write about that vacation. We flew business. We didn't even fly. We flew in nice seats. We had a car service. We didn't go rent at Hertz. No, we had a car service pick us up, a Mickey car service, whatever they had. Cinderella was driving the fucking minivan and Mickey was in the back seat making margaritas for my wife. Whatever version of this is the most prolific version, we're going to write this out and write it out and say how much fun we had and what happened. And then you're going to read this over and over and over again. And the universe is going to facilitate this either in a commission or in a contest or in a person or, hey, we bought this whole trip for our family of 4 to go. And we can't go. It's 5,000. We're selling it for 2,000. Does anybody want to buy it? Everything's transferred. It's going to be somebody that you know through some connection because you're constantly talking about this vacation you're going to take and you become a vibrational match to it. You didn't have to have $250,000 in the bank to be that dad. You had to vibrationally move your energy to where everything is possible because your heart and your soul wants to do this. Because you already know as a 16-year-old what it did. Imagine as a 9-year-old, an 8-year-old, a young child seeing all of these things and that we did this. It will live in an anchored memory just like yours forever. But people start to put these barriers.
Yeah. I didn't mean to abruptly interject, but maybe it's the psychic component that you were talking about, but we actually intentionally, me and my wife were actually waiting until my kids were old enough, but not too old to actually perceive. So my daughter's 4, she'll be 5 this year, and my son will be 7 in a little